From Pokemon with bad stats to limited availability and scarce move pools, Generation 2 Pokemon always felt like it had a very limited set of options for potential party members. Today, we're going to be fixing that as part of our ongoing series to make the ultimate Crystal ROM hack. The first group of Pokemon we'll look at are Gen 2 introductions that Game Freak retroactively realized were bad. Sneasel, Misdreavus, Gligar, Murkrow, Aipom, Yanma, and more. These Pokemon were introduced in Gold and Silver, but even before ability, their stats held them back from ever being realistically viable for a full playthrough. Game Freak acknowledged this as they all did eventually get evolutions. For Crystal, these Pokemon will not be getting evolutions. The reason being is that to me, that's just not in the vision of Crystal. Those Pokemon didn't exist in Gen 2, and I don't want to bring them in. But what I want these Pokemon to be are viable. Since they're all single evolution Pokemon, none of them are going to be insane, but my goal is to make them relatively viable for people who like them and want to use them. Now, Sneasel is one Pokemon that always frustrated me, as it wasn't even available in Johto until Crystal, and when it finally got placed there, it turned out to be terrible. Sneasel's 430 base stat and 115 speed is certainly nothing to scoff at. The big issue here is that its offensive stat is a base 95 attack, while its typings of both Dark and Ice pull from its pathetic 35 special. To remedy this, we've gone ahead and completely changed the Dark type to be physical in Gen 2. Not only does this help Sneasel, but every single Gen 2 Dark move, Pursuit, Bite, Crunch, Feint Attack, and Thief, are all physical in later generations anyway, so this is a very logical switch. This makes Sneasel's Dark moves pack a punch, but we've also raised its special to 55 so that its Ice secondary typing isn't completely wasted. Sneasel feels like a Dark type first and foremost, so this felt like the most logical fix for it. Sneasel will learn Icy Wind at level 20, Feint Attack at 25, Ice Punch at 33, and Metal Claw at 38. Just like in Crystal, Sneasel is available in Ice Path, but now Level Curved will appear in the 30s rather than 20s. Another Dark type that would never have had a use had it even been available in Johto is Murkrow. Its 405 base stat would not have been enough for a full playthrough, seeing as it did eventually get an evolution in Honchkrow with base stats totaling 505. In finding a fair balance for Murkrow, we've raised its HP from 60 to 70, raised its attack from 85 to 105, lowered its now less important special attack from 85 to 75, both defense have gone from 42 to 52, and its speed has been raised from 85 to 95. In total, its base stats have gone from 405 to 450, and Murkrow also gets access to Drill Peck through level up at 36, rather than it simply being an egg move. Now, this change felt like a bit of a more drastic one than what we did for Sneasel. I asked myself, is 105 attack too much? And sometimes, I think in general, when I'm doing this ROM hack, I question myself if I'm being too charitable. And whenever a question like this arises, I try to base my decision off of the precedent that Game Freak makes. For example, Murkrow is going to be found in Ilex Forest, the same point in the game where Heracross can now be obtained. Heracross boasts a 500 base stat and a 125 attack. And with that, Heracross was a staple team member of Gen 2 playthroughs, but it never felt busted. And so in short, I'm trying to base these decisions off of what Game Freak had already done, and with these changes, Murkrow feels really good. But an even worse performer to Murkrow in Gen 2 was Aipom. With 360 base stats, it's just not something you were ever going to run. Like, this thing is tragic. And so to make it more viable, we've changed its HP from 55 to 70, attack from 70 to 105 to more closely resemble the vision of Ambipom, its defense from 55 to 65, and its speed from 85 to 105. And while it is just a regular normal type, Aipom is now made viable for anyone who was wanting to run it but could never do it due to its pitiful stats. Aipom also now learns Low Kick at 19 and is available on Route 34 Morning or through traditional headbutt methods. Gligar is another Pokemon that was never quite good enough to make it to Gen 2 teams despite its unique flying ground typing. We've raised its HP and speed by 5 and its attack by 10 to boost it up to 450 base stat as well. The biggest thing Gligar suffered from, however, was a sad move pool, not being able to learn any flying or ground moves. This is a prevalent Gen 2 issue you'll see covered more in our full learn set and move breakdown video, but to remedy this on Gligar, it now gets Wing Attack at 32 and an early Earthquake at 38. And with these changes, Gligar now feels like a very solid team choice. Misdreavus is a Pokemon that was also never available for Gen 2, walked all the way in the final dungeon of Mount Silver. For our ROM hack, we've made small stat boosts to its special stats and speed of 5, taking them from 85 up to 90. More importantly, it's going to actually learn ghost moves now. It will start with Nightshade instead of Psywave, and then learn Shadow Ball at 27, and Psybeam will move to 32. It was nice of Game Freak to add another ghost type, but giving it no ghost moves is a travesty which has been fixed. The only thing that was worse than its move pool was its in-game location. Mischievous can now be located on the bottom floor of Burn Tower in Ecruteak City, as it is the ghost gym after all. Now, Yanma is a Pokemon that really saw the holy trinity of bad stats, bad moves, and a meager 1% spawn rate. As a flying bug that learns no bug or flying moves, it's been given Wing Attack at 19 and the buff move Twin Needle at 25. A lot of bugs are going to get this move, and Yanma is one of them. We also gave it the move Twister, just as a subtle nod to the fact that it's a dragonfly, and it's also had a significant boost in attack, going from a middling 65 to 105 to more closely represent Yanmega. Again, I tried to take inspiration from their evolutions while making sure not to totally rival them. With some slight defensive bulk and it being now easier to find on Route 35, Yanma is yet again another now viable contender. Delibird, on the other hand, is a bit of a meme, and I wasn't really wanting to make it like good, but we did put it on Price's team, and so I figured that it needed a small buff at least. Now, it's still only going to learn Present through level up, but its base stats have gone from 330 up to 400 to make it slightly more viable for having a place on the 7th gem. Togetic, however, is a Pokemon that does need some genuine work. For the introductory egg and breeding Pokemon, I always found it very disappointing that it was so unusable. I considered swapping its 80 special attack with its 40 attack, but ultimately left it to remain a special attacker. However, since it is normal flying, I did buff its attack by 10. We've also added 30 base points of HP to let its 85 defense and 105 special defense really shine. We also gave it Wing Attack at 27, and Togepi learns Return at level 11 now. With these changes, Togetic now feels like a viable utility member. And there is one Gen 2 Pokemon that, while it never got a secondary evolution, felt like it needed a boost, and that is Quillfish. We first boosted its defense from 75 to 85, but more importantly is the move pool changes we have made. The big issue this Pokemon faced was that the readily available Tentacruel always offered a better poison water option. And so rather than trying to make it compete head-to-head with the dominant poison water type, I decided to give it a niche of its own. Quillfish will now get Sludge at 22, but more importantly will be one of the few Pokemon that can be a Toxic Staller through Learn Set, learning Protect at 32 and Toxic at 36. Moving from here, Swinub and Piloswine also felt like they were in need of some fixes. While Piloswine's stats were in a decent place, Swinub felt very weak to be a level 33 evolution, so we buffed all its stats slightly to let it perform better until it evolved. Piloswine, however, got some other changes. As a ground ice type, we thought it would be nice to let it shine as a mixed attacker and balanced its attack from 100 down to 80 while moving its special from 60 up to 80. We also raised its special defense from 60 to 70. More importantly, however, Piloswine's been given a nice move set. On evolution, it gets Icy Wind, so you won't have to use your TM on it. Icy Wind has also been buffed from 55 damage to 65, while also being given 100% accuracy. It's also going to learn Earthquake through level up at 39. Altogether, these changes make a once forgettable Gen 2 option a now serious contender for your Claire and Lance fights. Politoed was always a forgotten Gen 2 Pokemon. There's simply no reason to use this thing. You could go Poliwrath. Literally any other decent water type does the exact same thing as this in Gen 2. And while I found this to be a very tough fix, I wanted to give Politoed at least some interesting moves. We've given it Rain Dance at 30 as a nod to its later ability Drizzle, Body Slam at 32, Ice Beam at 36, and Light Screen at 40. To be honest, it's basically still just bad Lapras, but I feel like with these changes, fans of this Pokemon will actually be able to find some viability with the Green Toad. Now, the next set of changes I want to make today are evolutionary. The rise in emulators caused a massive increase in scarcity through all the games, due to excluding any Pokemon that evolves by trade. In our ROM hack, the big four of Kanto, Machoke, Kadabra, Graveler, and Haunter are all going to evolve now by level up. These are four really good Pokemon, and so after a lot of thought, they will evolve at level 36, similar to where the starters tend to hit their final evolutions. In the days of my childhood, these were some staple Pokemon that I always ran, and I found it a shame to not be able to run them on an emulator. So I think it's really important that they're given reasonable accessibility for this ROM hack. We'll also be making changes to the Gen 2 Pokemon that evolve by trade. To begin, I'll be removing the trade requirement for the evolution of Seadra, Onix, Scyther, Poliwhirl, Slowpoke, and Porygon 2. Now they'll still evolve with the Dragon Scale, Metal Coat, King's Rock, and Upgrade respectively, but now these items will work just like stones, where you simply give them the item and they evolve. The complicated part of this for me, and and what I'm asking of you guys is where these items should be found. See, a lot of people think you can't get the metal coat and therefore Steelix and Caesar until Kanto, but that's actually not true, as in the original Crystal, Keen players could get a metal coat from Magnemite after the 3rd gym with a 2% drop rate. Now, this is super grindy, but the fact that it's accessible at all makes me want to save the player the trouble. Same goes for the Dragon Scale from Horsey's and Whirl Island and King's Rock on Slowpokes to a lesser extent. Currently, I'm thinking about changing this so that after taking down the Rocket hideout, the lady who pops up to sell items there will say she found the King's Rock and Metal Coat when cleaning out Team Rocket's stuff. I also put the Dragon Scale in place of the Dragon Fang and the Dragon's Den. For those that don't know, the Dragon's Fang doesn't actually do anything in Gen 2, so it felt like a better use of the location. These changes would make Politoed and Slowking, but especially Steelix, Caesar, and Kingdra more readily available before the Elite Four. The next set of Pokemon I want to fix are the Friendship Pokemon. Friendship is a really weird thing in Gen 2, because it can take such a long time to get high enough to evolve if you're not aiming for it, but on the other hand, it's also extremely abusable. You can Friendship evolve a Pokemon the level you get it by simply biking up and down for about an hour. Every 500 steps adds 1 level of Friendship, and I know some of you, Nuzlockers, are gonna want to either do this yourself or just use hacks to speed this process up. So I figured rather than fight that, I would just make leveling up give 10, 6, and 4 Friendship compared to its previous 5, 3, and 2. This will make it take 25 levels or less to evolve rather than what previously felt closer to 35. While I'm ready for some people to argue this, it ultimately does nothing but save the player time, so to me it's again just a quality of life improvement. This makes Espeon, Umbreon, Crobat, Chansey, Togetic, and other baby Evos much more accessible. Now, in our final ROM hack, nearly every Pokemon is going to see some move pool changes. We'll cover that in its own video, but one Pokemon I did want to really note that's getting a lot of changes is the Natu line. Previously, Natu learned Peck at level 1, Nightshade at 10, and then Zatu's only other normal damaging move was Psychic at 65. This is simply animal abuse. Like, for comparison, the superiorly statted, able to get at level 17 Alakazam gets 16 Confusion, 21 Psybeam, and Psychic at level 38. Xatu is one of Gen 2's most interesting designs, and it just got absolutely shafted. So, to amend this, there's no stat changes happening here, but Natu will learn Confusion at level 5. On Evolution at 25, Xatu will learn Psybeam, and then Psychic at 35. We've also buffed Future Sight to now do 120 damage like in future games, as in Gen 2, Future Sight did less damage than Psychic, took 2 turns to hit, and had a 10% chance to miss. Literally one of the most pointless moves in the game, but now it may serve a role for your Xatu as it learns it at 45. Moving on from big changes, I should also mention there were a lot of other Pokemon we considered for stat buffs. Pokemon like Ariados, Ledian, Unknown, Dunsparce, Corsola, but we felt it important to keep some Pokemon close to as they were originally intended. Like, for example, Bugs are meant to see early evolutions to get a quick power spike, but they're not intended to be endgame fighters. In keeping things still kind of how they are, this allows some of the favorites to continue to shine. It also frees up the spot for Ariados and Ledian on Bugsy's team. Now, beyond this set of Gen 2 underperformers, there are a lot of other Pokemon that, like Sneasel, get shafted because of the physical special split not existing. A ton of people have also asked whether I want to implement a physical special split, and it is just a hard no for this ROM hack. I want people to go into this with the memories of Gen 2 and it still feel like Gen 2. The lack of special physical split is just a neat quirk of Gen 2, and I want to keep it that way. However, I do also recognize that, like I said, there's a lot of Pokemon that get shafted because of this. To start off, let's look at Gengar. Gengar has an insanely high special stat of 130. Unfortunately, Ghost is a physical type in Gen 2, meaning that Gengar was always better off running Elemental Punches and Psychic rather than Shadow Ball. To remedy this, in unison with our Dark moving to physical change, Ghost will be moving to purely special. Lick and Shadow Ball are the only 2 damaging Ghost moves. And while it doesn't make sense for Lick to be special, it does make sense for Shadow Ball, which, let's be honest, is really the only serious attacking Ghost move in Gen 2. We're literally moving Ghost to special for Shadow Ball. More importantly though, this allows Gengar to make use of that beefy special attack. With that, however, there is an unfortunate but necessary nerf that also needs to come with this. Gen 2 Gengar has always been extremely overpowered, with its ability to learn all 3 elemental punches. You could walk into the final fight against Lance with a decently leveled Gengar and could effectively sweep him with 4 times damage on Gyarados and all 3 Dragonites, plus super effectiveness against Charizard and Aerodactyl. I really tried my best to limit any potential nerfs, as there's a lot of you out there that don't want to see this happen. But as someone who has taken advantage of this, honestly, just game-breaking miss sight, it has to happen. Well, it was going to. That is, until I talked to some of you guys in the Discord. For those of you that are really excited about this project, I encourage you, go check out the Discord. There's tons of conversation happening over there about changes. Gengar is amazing, and it should serve as a great option as a sweeper, but it shouldn't be able to solo nearly the entire Elite Four. And so while I was originally keen on removing all 3 punches, after a long discussion with some of you guys in the Discord, I've actually decided to let Gengar keep Thunder Punch. It can learn Thunderbolt from the move tutor, so this kind of makes sense for it to keep Thunder Punch as well. And overall, I think this is a really fair fix. It allows it to keep some of its amazing coverage while also stops it from being able to sweep the champion. And unfortunately, as you're probably expecting, guys, Alakazam is going to be getting the same treatment. The exact same arguments for Gengar can be made for Alakazam, except its speed and special stat are even higher, meaning it's literally better. Like, also, Alakazam shouldn't be able to punch. And so where I'm at right now with this thing is kind of thinking the same as for Gengar. Alakazam will lose its ability to learn Fire Punch and Ice Punch, but since it can learn Zap Cannon, will retain Thunder Punch. It also knows Shockwave in Gen 3, so I think this is a pretty fair compromise. Look, keep in mind, Alakazam remains the best sweeper in the game. Just now, it's a piece of the puzzle to your team rather than the entire thing. There are a lot of other Pokemon that learn all 3 punches, which I'm consider nerfing. Hypno, Electabuzz, Mr. Mime are all on my watch list, but for now, I haven't changed anything yet. And I ask you guys to let me know what you think about other potential changes, but at this point, Gengar and Alakazam are pretty firm. Anyway, little sidetrack there. Moving on to the rest of our special physical changes. Azumarill is going to have its special attack buffed from 50 to 70 to reflect modern stats. Flareon is going to see its special attack swapped. This guy was always the laughingstock of the original evolution line, being a fire user with high physical attack. We've swapped its 130 attack with its 95 special to make what is now, in my opinion, one of the better fire types for a Johto playthrough. Similarly, Entei is going to receive the same treatment, with its 115 attack being swapped with its 90 special. Weird that Flareon has higher special than what's supposed to sort of be its god-like reincarnation, but whatever. Entei's fire moves will come out stronger. It's now a little bit better. Kinkler is yet another Pokemon in this category. Currently, we've changed its attack from 130 down to 70 and raised its special from 50 to 110. I'm open to doing a full swap and just making it special 130, but I kind of want to hear some feedback first. Honestly, I kind of worry that that's going to be like way too strong Surf for that early in the game, but Kinkler got shafted and I'd like to see him actually have use in the game. Seaking is another Pokemon in this category that's going to have its 92 attack swapped with its 65 special attack. Dugong is also going to have its attack swapped to now have 60 attack and 80 special. And lastly, another water type that is up for debates, but I'm really asking you guys for some help here, is actually Gyarados. Gyarados is tricky because Gen 2 is arguably the worst version of it, but it's still really good. With 125 attack and only 60 special, its water moves aren't good, but I'm also very cautious to lower that amazing attack. Currently, what I've done is I've moved its attack down to 105 and raised its special to 80. This would let it remain a strong physical attacker with moves like Bite and Thrash, but its Surfs will also hit a bit harder. But this is one I am very uncertain on and am asking you guys for a bit of help with. If you guys like these changes and have any suggestions, I encourage you to join my Discord for further discussion, and otherwise, feel free to subscribe and follow along for our next video. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you later.